I always tell entrepreneurs to look at energy the same way they look at money. It's a finite resource that needs to be wisely managed, wisely reallocated, and wisely invested.
Have you ever walked away from a conversation or a room and felt like something inside you had been pulled out? Not just tired, but emptied, as if your mind, heart, and body had been wrung dry without warning. That sensation is not your imagination. And no, it's not just being sensitive. It's something much deeper, much older, and much more serious than most people realize. That feeling is the result of energetic drainage, and it's happening to more people now than ever before. You must protect yourself and energy now. What's silently stealing your energy? Every human being carries life force. In many spiritual traditions, this is known as prana, chi, or spiritus. It's not just physical energy or emotional well-being. It's the subtle current that connects your body to your soul, your presence to your purpose. This force keeps you aligned. It makes you feel alive, sharp, inspired. But here's the truth. No one teaches you early enough. This life force is not just sacred, it's valuable. And anything that holds value in this world becomes something that others seek to use, even unconsciously. You might assume that the people draining you are doing it intentionally. But the unsettling reality is that most of this energetic theft isn't malicious. It's unconscious. People who are disconnected from their own energy often begin to feed off others. They seek your validation to feel enough. They dump their emotions on you so they don't have to carry their own weight. They project their fears onto your decisions because they never had the courage to follow their own path. This isn't always abuse, but it's always an exchange. And when you're unaware, you end up paying the price. Some call them energy vampires, others call them psychic parasites. But labels don't matter as much as recognition. The moment you become aware that your spirit is being siphoned, you're no longer helpless. And that's what this series is about, teaching you how to reclaim your power, seal your energy field, and protect your inner light from forces that seek to dim it, whether those forces wear a stranger's face or someone you love. It starts with noticing the patterns. How do you feel after spending time with certain people? Is your body tense, even though your mouth is smiling? Do you feel guilt when you set boundaries? Do you feel like you're always explaining yourself, justifying your decisions, or second-guessing your gut? These are not just signs of emotional imbalance, they're spiritual symptoms, and the body is always the first to speak when the soul is being drained. Energetic drainage doesn't just come from people, it comes from environments too. Crowded spaces with frantic noise, toxic workplaces, unhealthy homes filled with unspoken resentment, all of these act like static around your energy field. They tangle your thoughts, cloud your intentions, and leave you feeling detached from yourself. Your aura, the electromagnetic field around you, can only filter so much before it weakens. But even deeper than this is the way modern culture has normalized being disconnected from self. We're taught to always be available, to reply instantly, to say yes before checking in with our own truth. We're praised for being selfless, but rarely taught how to be sacredly selfish, to protect our light not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. Because if your cup is always empty, how can you give without turning hollow? Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you can't become that version of yourself if every day your energy is being pulled in directions that don't serve your becoming. You can't access your higher path if you're drowning in emotional noise that isn't even yours. And that's the key. Most of the weight you're carrying, it was never yours to begin with. Empaths and intuitives are especially at risk. Not because they're weak, but because they feel more. They pick up on subtle frequencies, unspoken pain, even collective anxiety. If you're someone who absorbs emotions, then you've likely been drained for years and never realized it. You thought something was wrong with you. You thought you just needed to be stronger. But what you really needed was energetic boundaries. What you really needed was spiritual hygiene. This isn't about cutting everyone off or building walls. True energetic protection is not isolation. It's discernment. It's knowing how to read a room without speaking a word. It's knowing how to walk into any environment without losing your alignment. It's learning the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. You can love deeply without leaking constantly. Spiritual traditions from across the globe have always emphasized this. In ancient Egypt, priests and healers used intention, visualization, and sacred symbols to shield their aura. In India, Daily mantras and mudras were practiced to restore balance. In indigenous communities, smoke and earth rituals were used to cleanse what could not be seen. These weren't just spiritual performances, they were necessary practices for people who understood that unseen forces shape the seen world. You don't need to adopt every ancient ritual to protect yourself. But you must begin to take your energy seriously. Your energy is your signature, your currency, your boundary and your gift. If you're constantly drained, you will not manifest clearly, love freely, or hear the voice of your intuition. You will always feel behind, not because you're lazy or broken, but because your power has been leaking from holes you didn't know were there. And so, this is where we begin. We'll explore how to identify energetic leaks and close them. We'll dive into the spiritual disciplines that restore your frequency and shield your field. And most importantly, we'll explore how to stop giving your life force away in places that cannot return it. You do not owe anyone your depletion. You're not here to carry what generations before you refused to feel. Your light is not up for negotiation, and your peace is not optional. It's sacred. Your energy is your responsibility, but it's also your right. And once you reclaim it, you will remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. The hidden contracts, draining your energy. Not all energy loss is loud. In fact, most of it is quiet, so subtle that you don't realize it until exhaustion becomes your baseline. The worst kind of draining doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from the invisible agreements you never consciously signed. These are what we call energetic contracts, unspoken roles and emotional responsibilities you've taken on to keep peace, earn love, or feel safe. But every contract has a cost, and many of us are paying for agreements that expired years ago. You might not remember the moment you agreed to shrink yourself in order to be accepted. You might not recall when you started believing it was your job to make everyone around you comfortable. But your body remembers. Your nervous system has been holding those patterns like armor, and your energy, it's been leaking out through cracks you never questioned. For example, take the person who always listens but never gets heard, the one who's everyone's emotional support system but has nowhere to pour their own weight. This is not just a kind heart, it's a contract. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that being available made you valuable, that being needed meant being loved. But when your presence is constantly used as a lifeline, and you're left with nothing to hold for yourself, that isn't love, it's dependence, and it drains you dry. These unconscious agreements often begin in childhood. Maybe you were the peacemaker in a chaotic home. Maybe you learned to anticipate people's moods before they even spoke. Maybe you became hyper-attuned to other people's pain because no one ever tuned into yours, so you adapted. You became the caretaker, the fixer, the overachiever, and the cost was your connection to your own energy. Carl Jung once spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to survive in society. Many of us are still wearing that mask, smiling while we burn inside, holding space for others while collapsing inward. These personas become heavy. They require constant maintenance, and every day you maintain a role that isn't rooted in truth, you lose a piece of your light. This is why people who are spiritually sensitive often feel more tired than others. They are not just moving through life, they're navigating invisible tides, emotional currents, energetic cords, ancestral stories, contracts that were never spoken but deeply felt. You're not just living your own life, you're unconsciously carrying the unprocessed weight of others. And every time you say yes when your body is screaming no, you reinforce those contracts. But awareness is the beginning of release. Once you recognize these patterns for what they are, agreements, not truths, you can begin to renegotiate. You can ask, who benefits from me staying small? What am I afraid will happen if I step into my power? Where did I learn that silence was safer than truth? These aren't easy questions. They require courage, but they also open doors to sovereignty, clarity, and energetic freedom. The truth is, not everyone wants you whole. Some people are addicted to your dysfunction because it made them feel needed. When you start to heal, they may resist. When you begin protecting your energy, you might be called selfish. But remember this, protecting your life force is not an act of aggression. It is an act of self-respect. You're not abandoning anyone, you are returning to yourself. Boundaries are the spiritual armor of the awakened. But these are not just lines in the sand. True energetic boundaries begin with belief. You must believe that your energy is sacred before anyone else will. You must believe that saying no doesn't make you unkind, just clear. You must believe that it's not your job to carry what others refuse to heal. Once that belief takes root, the physical boundaries become easier. You'll notice who only calls when they need something. You'll feel the difference between conversations that nourish you and ones that leave you dizzy. You'll stop tolerating emotional chaos dressed up as loyalty. And you'll stop pouring your spirit into empty wells, hoping it will fill you back up. This is not about becoming hard or distant. It's about becoming aligned. It's about understanding that your energy is your compass. If something drains you consistently, it's out of resonance. If someone constantly pulls you out of yourself, it's not connection, it's entanglement. And there is no spiritual rule that says you must stay tangled in places that confuse your soul. In truth, the universe speaks in energy, not in words, not in logic, but in frequency. And your frequency rises when you stop leaking light into spaces that don't honor it. You become more magnetic, more clear, more rooted, and paradoxically more available to what actually nourishes you, not because you're more open, but because you're finally discerning. There will be people who leave your orbit. Let them. You're not losing them. You're losing the contracts that kept you small. And in their place, you gain something deeper. Agency. You begin to write new contracts. Ones that are mutual, balanced and resonant. Ones where your energy is not currency. It is presence. And presence is power. So understand. You cannot reclaim your energy without reviewing the deals you've made with your silence, your guilt, and your fear. Not all of them were fair. Not all of them were conscious, but they can be rewritten, right here, right now. And when you do, you begin to rise, not because you fought the world, but because you finally stopped fighting yourself. The energetic cord, what you can't see is controlling you. There's something most people never learn about their energy. It doesn't just move, it connects. Every interaction, every memory, every emotional exchange can leave behind an energetic imprint. Some of these imprints are soft and nourishing, like the warm trace of someone who loved you purely. But others are sharp, lingering cords that quietly pull at your field long after the moment has passed. These cords are invisible, but their weight is real. You can feel them when you try to move forward, and something tugs you back. You can sense them in dreams that return to old wounds, or in the unexplained heaviness that comes after thinking of someone you haven't spoken to in years. You might call it nostalgia, you might call it trauma, but energetically it's a cord, still attached, still active, still draining you. Not all cords are formed through trauma. Some come from intimacy, emotional bonding, a moment of vulnerability. When two people exchange deep emotion, whether through love, conflict, or shared experience, a thread is created. That thread links you energetically. If the relationship ends or shifts but the cord is not dissolved, the energy remains active. You might forget the event, but your field doesn't. It remembers what your mind tries to suppress. This is why someone can be out of your life for years, yet still live rent-free in your nervous system. Because their energy, especially if it was intense, is still echoing in yours. And if you've never cleansed it, cleared it, or consciously released it, then it might be feeding on your life force without your awareness. This is not a metaphor, this is a vibration. In spiritual traditions, energetic cords are real phenomena. Ancient shamans knew how to detect and cut these attachments using ritual, breathwork, or intention. In yogic philosophy, they're understood as entanglements in the pranic body. Even modern intuitive healers can often sense these threads like tension in the aura, especially when someone is fatigued, foggy, or emotionally reactive without clear reason. These cords are the unseen stories still writing your current chapter. But there's a deeper problem. If you're empathic or energetically open, you're more likely to pick up these cords without realizing it. A simple conversation, a shared glance, even a digital interaction can open a doorway. And if you don't know how to close it, it stays open. That means your energy is being subtly accessed, even if the person is unaware they're doing it. Some of the most draining cords are formed with people who needed you more than they ever respected you. People who pulled from your light without offering you anything in return. They may have walked away, but their hunger stayed. If you still feel guilty about walking away, or if you find yourself obsessing over their opinion, that's not just unresolved emotion. That's a living tether, and that tether is costing you clarity. You can't step into full alignment if part of you is still energetically living in the past. Cutting cords doesn't mean denying love. It doesn't mean rejecting memories. It means reclaiming your sovereignty. It's the conscious act of saying, I release this exchange. I free myself from being energetically responsible for someone else's path. I retrieve the part of me that got stuck in that moment, and I call my power back. This work can be done through visualization. Imagine the person in your mind's eye, gently but firmly severing the thread with light or intention. It can be done through writing, letters you never send but pour your truth into. It can be done through silence, solitude, or even ritual. But it must be done from your core. Half-hearted release does not dissolve full-blooded attachments. You'll know the cord is gone when you feel neutral, not numb, not bitter, just clear. Their name no longer stings, their presence no longer lingers, your energy no longer collapses when their memory enters the room. That's energetic freedom. And that freedom unlocks momentum. But there's another kind of cord we must talk about, the ones you're still holding. Sometimes we're the ones unwilling to let go. Not because we want the pain, but because we fear what comes after it. We believe if we let go, we'll lose part of ourselves. But the truth is, the part we're afraid to lose is the version of us that survived. And survival energy, while powerful, is not sustainable. At some point, the cost of clinging outweighs the fear of releasing. That's the moment when something within you breaks. And sometimes, that break is the beginning of rebirth. Energetic cords can also be formed through guilt, shame, or resentment, especially when directed inward. You may still be attached to an old version of yourself, a past mistake, a path not taken. That too is a tether, and it pulls you from the present moment every time you engage with it. So ask yourself, who or what am I still attached to, even in silence? What energy am I allowing into my field through memory or emotion alone? Where in my life have I given energetic access without consent? And most importantly, am I ready to take that power back? Because until you do, your field is not truly your own. It's a crowded space, echoing with voices that no longer belong. And your light deserves room to grow. Your aura isn't just light, it's your shield. Most people hear the word aura and immediately think of something soft, glowing, or mystical. But your aura is far more than that. It's not just an aesthetic shimmer for the spiritually curious, it's your first line of defense against energetic intrusion. And whether you know it or not, it's working every second of your life to protect, filter, and balance the energetic exchanges you experience. The only problem is, most people don't realize how damaged their aura has become. You can think of your aura as the electromagnetic field of your soul. Just like the Earth has an atmosphere, your body has its own energy shell. It expands and contracts depending on your emotional state, your health, your thoughts, and your environment. If you're joyful, aligned, and at peace, your aura radiates. It sends a clear signal out into the world. But if you're anxious, tired, or full of unprocessed pain, your aura becomes foggy and dim. Not because you're broken, but because your field is carrying too much weight. We've all felt this, even if we didn't have the language for it. The heaviness after sitting with someone who just complains non-stop. The tension in your chest after scrolling through social media. The tightness in your shoulders after visiting certain places. That's your aura doing everything it can to absorb, filter, and protect you from overstimulation. But it can only do so much before it weakens. And when your aura weakens, you become energetically vulnerable. This vulnerability shows up in subtle ways. You might feel drained after seemingly small interactions. You might become more reactive, more anxious, or more easily triggered. You may feel like you've lost your spark or that your thoughts are always cloudy. These aren't just mood swings, these are the signs of an overloaded energy field. Here's what most people don't realize. Your aura holds on to residue. It absorbs energy from every room you enter, every person you speak to, and every emotion you suppress. If you don't cleanse or fortify it regularly, your aura becomes like a sponge that's never been wrung out. It's heavy, overworked, and unable to do its job properly. But there's good news. You don't need to be an energy healer or a monk on a mountain to protect your aura. You just need awareness and intention. Cleansing your aura can be as simple as spending time in nature, walking barefoot on the earth, sitting under a tree, or letting water flow over your hands. These are not just relaxing activities, they are real ancient techniques for energetic reset. Indigenous cultures have always known this. The earth absorbs excess energy and rebalances the field naturally. It's not symbolic, it's scientific. Sound is another powerful tool. Singing bowls, mantras, chants, and even intentional humming can help recalibrate the frequency of your aura. Sound vibrates the space around your body, shaking off energetic debris the same way a bell clears a room of stagnant air. And when you combine sound with breath, long, deep inhales, followed by slow, conscious exhales, you begin to purify not just the body, but the space around it. But protection is just as important as cleansing. If your aura is thin, torn, or scattered, you're more likely to take on what doesn't belong to you. You become a sponge for the emotions of others. That's why shielding your field is essential. This isn't fear-based, it's wise. Visualize your energy field as a golden or violet bubble surrounding you. With each breath, imagine it becoming stronger, brighter, more impenetrable. Do this before you enter crowded spaces, have difficult conversations, or engage with technology. Your aura responds to your focus. It strengthens when you pay attention to it. Even your thoughts play a role. Every time you believe you're powerless, your aura shrinks. Every time you doubt your worth, your energy field distorts. And every time you replay someone else's story in your mind, their energy becomes part of your frequency. This is why mental hygiene is spiritual hygiene. You must begin to choose your inner dialogue as carefully as you choose your food. Jung believed that what you resist not only persists, but grows stronger. So if your field is full of unspoken anger, fear, or grief, that energy will shape your reality, whether you acknowledge it or not. Cleansing your aura is not just about removing external gunk. It's about facing the truth of what you've allowed to live in your field without question. Are you holding on to other people's stories because you don't know your own? Are you trying to heal others as a way to distract from healing yourself? Are you afraid to raise your vibration because you know it will separate you from people who no longer align? These are difficult questions, but your aura cannot lie. It reflects your truth, no matter how much you try to bury it. And so, part of energetic protection means choosing presence over performance. It means choosing stillness over constant output. It means pausing long enough to ask, is this mine, or did I pick this up from someone else? When your aura is strong, you don't just protect yourself, you attract differently. You begin to resonate at a frequency that no longer welcomes chaos. You stop getting pulled into drama. You feel less anxious in social settings. You stop doubting your intuition. Why? Because your field is no longer crowded with noise. It's clear, grounded, and responsive. In truth, most people are not exhausted because they're doing too much. They're exhausted because their aura is doing too much, trying to protect them from everything they refuse to face. So if you truly want to reclaim your power, start here. Treat your energy field like your home. Clean it. Protect it. Don't let everyone walk through it. And most importantly, fill it with what reflects who you are becoming, not what you've outgrown. The hidden frequency of thought. What you believe is what you broadcast. There's a reason some people walk into a room and instantly shift the atmosphere. It's not charm, it's not looks, it's not money, it's frequency. And more specifically, it's the unspoken frequency of their thoughts. Most people never stop to consider that thinking is a form of energy, but every single thought carries a charge. It vibrates, it moves, and it echoes. Thoughts are not confined to the inside of your mind. They ripple outward, into your energy field, into your home, into your conversations, into your body. What you dwell on becomes the signal you broadcast, and the universe is always listening. We often think of protection in terms of people or spaces, but few realize that the greatest attack on your life force doesn't come from the outside. It comes from your thinking loops, that small, repetitive voice in your head that constantly whispers, "You're not ready yet. They don't really like you. You always mess things up." These aren't just bad habits, they are subtle curses spoken again and again until your energy bends to match them. Your subconscious absorbs repetition like soil absorbs water. It doesn't care if what you repeat is empowering or limiting, it only responds to frequency. And the more you repeat a belief, especially when it's charged with emotion, the deeper it's embedded in your energetic field. This is why someone who always says, "Nothing ever works out for me," tends to experience a life that reflects that very truth. Not because life is unfair, but because they've unconsciously commanded their reality to mirror it. The danger of negative thought patterns isn't just emotional, it's vibrational. Each time you entertain a thought of fear, jealousy, shame, or scarcity, your aura contracts, your magnetism weakens, your immune system lowers, even your body posture changes. This isn't theory, it's physics. You are an electromagnetic being, and every thought either amplifies or distorts your signal. This is why affirmations aren't just positive thinking gimmicks. When done with emotion and belief, they are recalibrations. They rewrite the internal script, tuning your mind to higher channels of awareness. But here's the key. Affirmations don't work unless you feel them. You can't just repeat, "I am safe," while your nervous system is screaming. You have to build safety into your body through breath, presence, and awareness. Only then do the words become real. One powerful way to begin shifting your thought frequency is through self-witnessing. Not judgment, not control, just observation. Start paying attention to the background noise of your day. What do you say to yourself when you wake up, when you make a mistake, when you look in the mirror? These micro messages matter more than any grand ritual, because they are the daily spell work casting your frequency. There's also a reason why so many people feel exhausted by their own minds. It's not just overthinking, it's over-broadcasting. Constant inner chatter clutters the field. It becomes noise the universe can't interpret. That's why silence is often the most magnetic state you can enter. Not the silence of repression, but the silence of presence. A quiet, clear mind is a powerful transmitter. It doesn't plead, it doesn't panic, it simply projects what it knows is true. And here's the deeper layer. Your thoughts are not all yours. In Jungian terms, the collective unconscious is always flowing through us. You pick up thoughts from media, culture, family, friends, and ancestral memory. Just because a thought arises doesn't mean it's authentic. That's why discernment is crucial. Ask, is this thought serving me, or is it an echo of someone else's fear? When you become intentional about your mental frequency, you begin to notice how different thoughts feel in the body. Scarcity thoughts tighten your chest. Judgmental thoughts feel sharp. Loving thoughts soften your breath. Your body is a tuning fork. It always knows what's true even if your mind tries to override it. And here's the secret most people overlook. Energy follows thought. Your reality does not begin with action. It begins with perception. If you change the filter, the world changes with it. And once you understand this, you stop begging life to give you signs. You become the sign. But to access this power, your mind must become a temple, not a battlefield. That means cleaning up the internal clutter, releasing outdated beliefs, cutting off toxic comparisons, and most importantly, taking responsibility for your broadcast. Because if you want your energy to be protected, it can't be noisy. If you want the universe to respond, your signal must be clear. Not perfect, not flawless, but honest, true, rooted. Your thoughts are your tuning fork, your focus is your steering wheel, and your belief, that's the engine. If you don't trust your inner world, your outer world will reflect chaos. But if you reclaim the sacred nature of your thoughts, if you treat each one as a spell, you begin to see the magic in motion. So today, ask yourself, what am I thinking that is shaping my tomorrow? If it doesn't align with your truth, rewrite it, reclaim it, replace it with something that reflects your actual power. Because protecting your energy isn't just about shielding from others, it's about correcting the current flowing through you. Sacred boundaries. Protecting the doorway of your soul. There's a truth most people sense but rarely admit. Not everyone should have access to you. Not everyone deserves to know your heart, your thoughts, your silence, your essence. Energy is not just something you carry, it's something you offer, even if unconsciously. Every interaction is an invitation, and without boundaries, you're constantly leaving the front door of your soul wide open. This is where so many people lose their power. They confuse being kind with being accessible. They confuse being spiritual with being self-sacrificing. They confuse love with overexposure. But true energetic integrity requires discernment. Not everyone who smiles at you is safe. Not everyone who praises you is aligned. Some come close just to siphon your light, not out of malice, but because they've forgotten how to generate their own. When you don't have clear boundaries, your aura becomes like an open circuit, exposed, erratic, and easily manipulated. You begin to notice patterns, conversations that leave you drained, relationships that feel like emotional labor, spaces that echo with invisible tension. And yet, without boundaries, you stay. You explain. You overextend. You try to be understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding you. But boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They let in what nourishes and keep out what depletes. Boundaries are not about rejection. They're about resonance. And the more you honor your energy, the more you realize how sacred your presence truly is. This is why setting boundaries is more than an emotional act. It's a spiritual discipline. When you say no to what disrupts your nervous system, you're saying yes to your inner peace. When you choose solitude over forced connection, you're declaring that your energy is not a public commodity. When you walk away from manipulation master's love, you're restoring the frequency of your soul. But boundaries must begin within. Before you draw lines in your relationships, you must draw them in your thoughts. Ask yourself, what beliefs am I still allowing to invade my peace? What past voices am I still giving power to? What fears am I still entertaining in the quiet of my mind? Because if your internal world is chaotic, your external boundaries will always be porous. Energetic sovereignty starts by choosing yourself in private. It starts by silencing the guilt that rises when you disappoint others by being honest. It starts by watching how often you abandon your own needs to keep the peace. It starts by realizing that if you constantly bend, you will eventually break. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but you cannot become without protecting the becoming." Growth requires space. Healing requires silence. Awakening requires protection from the noise that tries to pull you back into unconsciousness. If you don't fiercely guard that sacred process, the world will rush in and shape you before your own truth gets the chance to. And so, boundary work becomes a reclamation. You stop apologizing for being sensitive. You stop explaining why you're unavailable for gossip, comparison, or superficiality. You stop negotiating with energy vampires, narcissists, or subtle manipulators. Instead, you step back and let your absence speak. You let your silence clarify what your words no longer need to defend. Some people will call this selfish. Let them. Most aren't used to a woman or man who honors their own light without dimming it for others. But those who are meant to walk with you, those who see your soul clearly, will never be threatened by your boundaries. They'll be drawn to them, because they recognize the energy of someone who has done the inner work. And if no one has told you this before, you're allowed to be kind and unavailable. You're allowed to be compassionate and selective. You're allowed to be spiritual and still say no. You don't owe anyone your constant attention, your endless availability, or your peace of mind, especially not those who take more than they give. So how do you protect your energy practically? Start small. Honor the red flags. Trust the tightness in your chest. Leave the room when your body tells you it's not safe. Take longer pauses before replying. Let the silence grow long enough to reveal someone's true intentions. And remember that no is a complete sentence, not the start of an apology. You will lose people when you raise your standards, but what you lose in comfort, you gain in clarity. And what you gain in clarity, you manifest in alignment. Because your energy is currency. Spend it where it is honored, not where it is exploited. What you attract is what you tolerate, closing the loops that leak your power. Energy is not just something you emit, it's also something you invite. And here's the difficult truth. Whether you're conscious of it or not, your energetic state teaches the world how to treat you. If your field is scattered, unclear, or anchored in fear, the patterns you draw in will reflect those exact frequencies. This isn't a punishment, it's a mirror, a sacred feedback system designed not to shame you, but to wake you up. Many people wonder why they keep meeting the same kinds of friends, lovers, or experiences, despite wanting something different. But manifestation doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your baseline, the emotional tone you live in, the thoughts you entertain on loop, the feelings you suppress but never heal. That's what sends the strongest signal. This is where the idea of closing loops comes in. Loops are unresolved energetic threads. open storylines, unhealed relationships, lingering guilt, invisible attachments to who you once were or who you think you need to be. These loops leak your energy like a slow drip. You don't notice it right away, but over time, they drain your life force, making it harder to fully be in the present moment, where your true power lives. A loop can be as simple as a memory you revisit every night before bed, or a conversation you keep replaying in your head with different endings. It can be a role you keep playing in someone's life even though it no longer fits, or a silent agreement you made years ago that you've never questioned. I'll always be the responsible one. I'll never let anyone get too close. I have to prove myself to be loved. The problem is, while these loops stay active in your subconscious, your energy remains split. Half of you is trying to manifest a future. The other half is trapped in an emotional timeline that has already expired, and you cannot move forward freely while dragging the weight of unresolved energy behind you. This is why protection isn't just about shielding from new intrusions. It's also about reclaiming the fragments of your soul scattered across old versions of you. You must learn to consciously retrieve your energy from the past. Cut cords, close chapters, say the goodbyes you've been avoiding, even if it's just in your own heart. Ask yourself, where is my energy still living that I no longer belong? Which thoughts pull me back into patterns I've outgrown? Who am I still silently waiting to understand, apologize, or change? This isn't about blame, it's about awareness, because once you become aware, you have the power to reclaim. And when you reclaim those scattered pieces of yourself, something incredible begins to happen. Your signal gets clearer. Your energy becomes whole. You stop attracting lessons in disguise and start calling in alignment without confusion. People who used to drain you can no longer find a way in. Patterns that once felt magnetic lose their pull, and opportunities you never saw before begin to appear, not because the world changed, but because you did. One of the most radical things you can do to protect your energy is to stop begging for scraps from people, from the universe, from life. When you raise your frequency, you raise your standards. You stop mistaking attention for love, chaos for passion, or struggle for worth. You start recognizing that the energy you accept sets the tone for what you receive. You stop fighting to be chosen and realize you are the one doing the choosing now. You no longer say yes just to keep the peace. You no longer water down your truth just to stay liked. You no longer tolerate the bare minimum while calling it loyalty. This is what happens when your energy becomes sovereign. Not cold, not disconnected, but unshakably clear. You still feel everything, but you don't let everything in. You love deeply, but you no longer abandon yourself in the process. You give freely, but only from a full cup, not as a way to earn approval or avoid discomfort. At this level, you understand that protecting your energy is not about fear. It's about alignment. It's about recognizing that your vibration is your responsibility. No one else can keep it high, clean, or clear. That is your sacred work. And the final truth is this: when you fully reclaim your energy, everything around you must shift. Relationships either evolve or dissolve, spaces either nourish or repel you, choices become simpler, clarity becomes your compass. Because when you stop leaking energy, you start radiating truth. And that truth becomes your greatest protection. So if you've been asking how to keep your light strong in a dark world, here is your answer. Honor your frequency more than you honor their expectations. Close the loops, clean the field, hold your line. The universe will meet you where your vibration lives, not where your words beg. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.